feel when your numbers go up and they hear you. They start following your message cause they feel you. Haters in the rear view wanna ruin plans. Don't be startled, they just low-key fans. They tight like bands on the fresh stack. Knowing Rolo runs the city, bringing hip-hop back for the 51st year with my loquacious bands. Now this ain't no love.
What is going on, my good people? It is me, Rolo Runs the City, and welcome back to the Rolo Runs the City podcast. And I would like to thank you guys for tuning in today, and I greatly appreciate you guys checking me out last week for the start of the new season. I knew that I may have sounded a bit flat, and I do apologize for that, but one of the reasons is, I tell you, I'm trying to get through an injury here, so feeling a little bit better, just trying to bring my energy back up, and of course, what the mind believes the body will achieve. So without further ado, we're going to talk about the great episode we have in line here for you today, and that is the power of recovery, mind, body, and spirit. Yes, they all work intertwined into one to make the recovery process happen. Of course, in last week's episode, we talked about the struggles that I went through during the marathon and how it took grit to get through and run through injury, and it was something that it absolutely tried to take me out of the game. Let's just be honest. But at the end of the day, we wanted to make sure that what we start, we finish. So we harped on that last week, and of course this week is going to be a little different, but no different, of course, if that makes sense to you. Because at the end of the day, we're all about trying to finish strong. But anywho, this week we're going to talk about about healing, from the injuries, and, basically that it's just the utmost importance to just actually, recover after the body's taken such a beating. And a lot of people, especially athletes, they would understand where you need a moment to decompress. And after a long season, many athletes, they're grinding absolutely as hard as they can to try to achieve the end result, whether that's coming in first place, winning a championship, or even beating out a personal best. So that's where I'm at this point. I never really took an off season because I've consistently been, ever since I got into, running. And not to say that I've never ran, because I was in the military, obviously, that's all we did. We were like a damn track team. That's all we did was run. It's like Monday, we're running. Wednesday, we're running. Friday, we're running. And even on the weekends, if you are around the unit, we're going to recruit you so then that way you can run. So no matter what, I was accustomed to running. But at the same time, I had, of course, took a long break from running, being the fact that your knees get beat up, so you're really trying to do the best that you can to have some preservation of cartilage. Of course, you don't want bone on bone. There's plenty of athletes who go through that. It's very painful. And I think that at the same time, we have been able to recover our muscles well from not beating it up. Anywho, fast forward to the end of 2018, I'm running. And I have not stopped. I mean, I've been doing, various type distances, whether it's 5Ks, 10Ks, half marathons. And I was actually in hopes of doing not just one. I wanted to do a couple of ultras this year because I feel like I've been prepping myself for that. But there's a reason why I've gotten sidelined. Like I said last week, did the ATL marathon. Nagging injuries occurred. I said, well, we'll see how we feel when we do the Atlanta Hawks Fast Break 5K. And that didn't bode well for me, and that let me know I needed to shut it down for the rest of the year. Yes, like I said, the year is still young. We're not even through the first quarter yet. But it had to get done, and recovery is the most important thing. And this is one of our main points that we're just trying to prove today, and it's not only about the physical aspect. Of course, things can be tricky in reference to the mindset. And many folks end up getting to a point where they're fearing of being re-injured. I'm not going to lie. I'm one of those folks right now. I feel okay. I feel I can probably run a couple miles, but am I going to do it right now? Nah. It's not so much that my mind is psyching me out, but it's actually because I want to make sure I recover properly. And I definitely don't want to re-injure, try to get back at something too soon, and then end up hurting myself long term. So I definitely don't want to do that. I don't recommend anybody to do that. At the end of the day, I'm not saying to totally avoid the pain. Pain is going to come no matter what. We already know how the mindsets work of the 2 million year old brain of it's trying to make sure that it protects us from either one, getting hurt, or two, even getting killed, right? I mean, that's when we have that fear that comes into play that actually protects us to keep on surviving and living. At the same token, I understand too that the mind can play tricks on you, and it can actually take you out of the game in reference to not even participating. So that is definitely not what I'm saying, and that's not what I'm trying to do right now. What I'm really trying to do is I want to make sure that once I'm ready to actually start running again, that I can, crawl, walk, run. I don't want to come right out the gate like a thoroughbred, because although I try to run myself like I'm a horse, I know I'm not. So with that being said, I want to make sure that I take the proper time to recover, and like I said, it's imperative to make sure that you train smart and grow accustomed to things that are actually entailed with the recovery process, And for me, I know that I've been using mobility work, yoga, and this is something that I've never really gotten into. I've never gotten into yoga, doing any mobility work, things like that. I mean, you can pretty much say that I was just a stiff man running. And I started doing yoga, and I've noticed that it's helped me so much because it's allowed me to do things with my body that I had no idea that I was able to do. So with that being said, I think yoga is definitely a plus when it comes to athletics, not only just running, but I mean, any sort of sport that you're into. It's even essential for life. I mean, at the end of the day, you want, I'm all about functionality fitness, which means like if you're in your 60s and 70s or 80s or even 90s and you're traveling, you want to be able to go ahead and put your carry-on on the overhead bin in an airplane if need be. You don't want to be at a point where you need assistance all the time because, like I said, what you don't use, you lose, and atrophy does occur, especially when it comes to aging. So I definitely want to make sure that I'm putting myself in the best position to be successful, not only now, but, we're talking about 20, 30 years down the line. I definitely would like my 73-year-old self to say, hey, I appreciate the work that you did in your 30s and 40s because now I'm benefiting. And that's the mindset that I actually have. And I'm preaching this because I'm hoping people can actually do the same thing. At the end of the day, nobody's going to save you. No one's rescuing you. If you think the government's going to save you, they're not going to. If you think any outside entity is going to come and just be your knight in shining armor, nope. That is up for you to make happen, and I recommend that you take that serious. So with that being said, I'm doing this yoga and all this other stuff and really just trying to unlock my full potential, you know what I mean? And it's actually helping me big time because, like I said, my body's able to do things that I have not been able to do. And it's probably because my stretching techniques are poor, and I need to be putting a little bit more physical equity into it. So then that way I can go ahead and maximize everything that this body is allowing me to do. And the way I feel that I am a dope soul. I feel that my body needs to match what my soul is trying to get out there. So like I said, the mind, body, soul interconnectivity, I mean, it's all intertwined. It's all together, and once you have everything working as one, like they say, would the sky be the limit if there's boots on the moon? That's debatable, but it's a great saying. But with that being said, that's one of the Main things that we want to make sure that we don't re-injure ourselves. Make sure that we're building that mental fitness for ourselves, because, like I said, what the mind believes, the body will achieve. And there's a great quote by Paulo Coelho that says, "He who says he can and he who says he can't are both right." So I'm totally all about, not trying to say that I'm into the power of positive thinking, but I am an optimist, but at the same time, I am a realist too. For example, I had a couple of races lined up that, unfortunately for me, I lost money because I didn't get insurance on my purchases, which next time and from here on out, I will be doing. But at the end of the day, I felt I can get these races done. I can do this. Should have zero issue trying to get this stuff done. And unfortunately, I couldn't get it done because my body was just not going to allow me to go. No matter what my mind was saying, the body was like, dude, you need to shut this thing down. We need to relax. We need to rest, and we need to go ahead and go through the proper recovery. So that's what process I am in currently at this time. So with that being said, it's imperative to ensure that your mindset is right, because the road to recovery it's a long recovery. Especially when you go as hard as I've been going. And I'm not saying that I'm the only one that goes this hard. There's plenty of people out there that are hitting the ground running every day, giving it their all. And sometimes the body needs the time to decompress. And that's something that is absolutely imperative if you're trying to do things for the long term. And you always wonder why professional athletes, as soon as they retire, on the physical aspect, they gain a boatload of weight. They don't even look like they even play professional sports. And it's because they've hit that ground running so hard, so consistently for so many years that they're burnt out. And that's something that I say all the time, that we definitely don't want to be in a situation where we're feeling burnt out, because that's when you want to quit. It's no different than, were you running a marathon or running a 5K and you're like, man, I can do this. And I never take any race distance for granted. So even though you run marathons or you run ultras, I never take a 5K for granted, because no matter what, those are the miles that are ahead of you. And you'll think, oh, just because I ran a 5K, I run marathons, I'm not worried about it. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to haul, and I'm going to do what I can to run a 5.5 minute mile or a 5 minute mile. But your marathon pace is probably a 8.5 minute mile, a 9 minute mile, a 7.5 minute mile. So what happens is you think shorter distance, you can push a little bit more, you exert yourself, and next thing you know, bam, you're flat. So I never take those distances for granted. I really don't. So that's one of those things that we have to make sure that we do, is not only have the power of positive thinking, but of course, making sure that we're realistic as well, So, and then on the spiritual aspect, like I said, I feel like I'm a dope soul. I feel like everybody should feel like they're a dope soul, but your body should match that soul of yours. So if you're a dope soul and you're not treating your body well, you're cheating your soul out of this great garage that is called the body, and that soul is supposed to be your high-performing car. Make sure you clean up the body, clean up your garage, so that soul can keep going over 100 miles an hour all day, every day, top performance. But, with that being said, no matter what, you have to think about, what drives you, your purpose. I told you about me. I hate running, but the reason why I do it is because I do it for those who can't. I also know what the other side of not running and not exercising and not taking care of yourself looks like. Premature death, illness, all sorts of sickness. And those are things that they could be your inevitable, or you can decide to do things on your own terms and don't shoot yourself in the foot and actually, propel yourself forward and achieve better health. At the end of the day, we really don't want to be in a situation where, life is hard as it is. And one of the things that we should not do is shoot ourselves in the foot. So my recommendation to you is to prove how dope that soul of yours is and get your health in order. At the end of the day, know what your purpose is. Drive. Keep that drive going. And like I said, I stay purpose driven because, like I said, I run for those who can't. And it would be foolish of me to do otherwise, because at the end of the day, the Lord wants me to propel myself forward and be a shining example of what can be. So I always keep those things near and dear to my heart. Unfortunately, I've seen many folks who've had the opportunities to do many things with this great body that they're given, and they totally abuse it. And it doesn't matter when it happens. It inevitably is going to happen, because the same thing with failure and success, they don't happen overnight. It's several different aspects on where it takes, like laying bricks, brick by brick. Next thing you know, keep on laying a brick, you have a mansion. And that can happen on both ways. Every decision that you make can lead to something absolutely successful or to complete failure. But both of those two don't happen overnight. So always keep that in mind. And, you have to think about it too. And in reference to just saying in life, maybe you're not into running, maybe you're not into working out, lifting weights, whatever your thing is, everybody can relate, because at the end of the day, it's a grind. No matter what you're trying to get yourself into, it is a grind. And to go through life and not embrace your calling and not put yourself in the best possible position is just, like I said, you're cheating yourself, So whatever you want, whatever you're seeking, go out and get after it, but do it in the wisest way. Burnout doesn't only happen on the pavement. There's people who consistently grind. Folks sacrifice their health for monetary gain. And I've even seen things to where, and I've done it myself, where I have worked jobs where I'm like, oh, okay, I'll work 12 hours today, but I was supposed to work 8. Or I'll do a double today, and you're working 16 hours. You go home, you shower up, you eat a little bit, you sleep to go back to work the next day. That's happened to me as well, too, and I'm sure it's happened to many people. And I've noticed for myself that I was building another person's dream while I was living a nightmare, And that's one thing that you have to really take into consideration. Now, I know I've gotten a little bit off of the topic of running, but this is absolutely true. Burnout can happen anywhere at any time. It doesn't necessarily have to be on the pavement. And you have to really put things into perspective, and you really need to think about yourself first. And for those who are out there burning themselves out, working 2-3 jobs at a time, I tell my wife all the time that 2 or 3 jobs is meant for 2 or 3 different people. So at the end of the day, if you're trying to build your empire, that's all good. Do what you got to do. If you want to work your 9 to 5 and that's all you want to do, that's all fine and well. But I will tell you this, though. You're not going to become wealthy by working 2 or 3 jobs for somebody else. If that's the case, if you want to go ahead and burn yourself out like that, I recommend you start your own stuff. You do what you got to do. So then that way you can become the greatest asset that you can be for yourself, for your family, and make an impact. Because if you're working 2 or 3 jobs for somebody else, like I said, you will continue to live the nightmare while building somebody else's dream. So that's another form of burnout that we're talking about outside of the pavement. But like I said, running, life, intertwined. It all relates. We can all relate to that. But anywho, so according to the Gatorade Sports Science Institute, there's a substantial evidence that supports the role of recovery in enhancing athletic performance. Effective recovery strategies not only aid in reducing fatigue, but also contribute to improved performance and decrease risk of injuries. So, like I said, that was quoted by the Gatorade Sports Science Institute. And I'm very keen about that because recovery is not something that I would regularly do. I mean, there will be points where I'm running and I'm so tired, I can't even stretch. So who knows how long this thing's been building up for me to end up in just a total situation where I was just getting ready to give myself the old screw job. And I think that's really what happened. I screwed myself over, and it was something that obviously we don't intend to do that. But at the end of the day, unfortunately, due to our habits and what we do, we end up doing it. So, sometimes people don't want to overeat, and they realize, hey, they smoke cigarettes, and it cures them from not eating, which is crazy. But that's what they do. What's the logic? Have no idea. Can't relate. But it's their logic. But anyway, with that being said, recovery isn't just about rest. It's coming back stronger. Whether it's fitness, music, life, whatever you're doing, however you're pushing hard, and pushing hard is important, but knowing that you're rebuilding and you're resetting and you're refocusing, that's what leads to long-term success. And that's the reason why recovery is so important. You have to think about it. This is one thing that I was thinking about too. I also, I produce and I write music and all that. I've been working on a project that I'm planning on releasing mid-year. And they had to put that at hold. Like, it was on hold. I had to put it on hold. And the reason being was because I was so jacked up that I couldn't even sit down to write. I mean, I was so tore up, and it was because nagging injury here, nagging injury there. It's almost like you avoiding your check engine light on your car or truck. And you're just like, I'm not worried about it. Just because you put tape over it, or if you go ahead and bust the dash and you take the light out, doesn't mean that there isn't an issue that's underlying that's going to eventually get you, because it absolutely got me. I ignored the signs. I kept on running till the wheels fell off, and next thing you know, bam, shut down. So that's what happened. But, can't cry over spilled milk. It is what it is, right? But, you understand that you really have to recover, because at the end of the day, it fuels performance, and it's not a weakness. It is an absolute necessity. So at the end of the day, remember, your mindset matters. And if you feel that your body can't perform, it's going to mess with you a little bit. You know what I mean? And I know it messed with me. And I do believe that I am a strong-minded, strong-willed individual. But when you're like, we're going, and your body's like, no, the hell we aren't. We're not going anywhere. That's what kind of gets me a little bit like, damn, like it starts attacking your psyche a little bit. You know what I mean? But, like I said, mindset matters, man. You can bounce back from setbacks, whether if it's racing or in personal, situations that are happening in your life. Everything is about perspective and discipline. At the end of the day, you have to look at, what am I learning and how am I going to overcome this? I told you last week, I said, hey, one thing that I do is that I look at the problem for a couple minutes and I'm spending the rest of the time on the solution. So at the end of the day, that's when those things go into play, where you have to think about perspective and then allow your discipline to continue to work. So that's one of those things that I know is very keen, helps me big time. You know, so, you know, smart recovery also leads to longevity. I talked about this earlier about, you know, looking at the long term, you know. So, you know, whether you're an athlete, artist, entrepreneur, whatever, you know, whatever it is, you know, when you take care of your body and you're taking care of your mind, you can keep the grind on for the years to come. But at the end of the day, you have to know when you need to decompress. And I'm very keen on that now. And I haven't been keen on it before, but I am keen on it now. I'm preaching it. Recovery, recovery, recovery. Dude, I'm all for it. And I'm going to give you a quote right now from my favorite basketball player, which I believe is the GOAT, the greatest of all time. Some will debate it's Jordan. Some will try to debate it's LeBron. But there's one Mamba that I don't forget, okay? And the quote is, recovery is not just the absence of struggle, but the presence of growth. Kobe Bryant. And I wish I would have seen this before, because if I would have seen this, I would have realized that the Mamba took time off too in order to get himself together. And, you know, he's definitely my GOAT. I say it all the time. You know what? Jordan won 6 with Pippen. How many did he win without him? You know, how many times did LeBron have to cheat so he can try to get him a title? And then I say this. Okay, what about Kobe now? Kobe's got 5. How many did he win without Shaq? 2. Case closed. Anyway, but that's just my bias. But anywho, and shout out to the Mamba. Lord rest his soul. But anyway, man, you guys already know if you have a question or anything like that, or on a future, you know, maybe about a future episode, you know, you guys can email me at rollerrunsthecity@gmail.com. That is rollerrunsthecity@gmail.com. I am on Instagram at Rolo Runs the City Podcast, also at Rolo Runs the City Music. Either or, you can definitely hit me up. Also, same thing on Facebook. Just opened up Facebook, so now I've got a Rolo Runs the City Podcast and a Rolo Runs the City Music. And don't forget, I am on X at Rolo Runs the City. Y'all take care, Godspeed. I definitely do appreciate you guys' listenership, and you know, feel free to hit me up, and we'll make it do what it do. Y'all take care, Godspeed, and we will see you next week. Take care. Be the GOAT, never a sheep, and don't sleep on your dreams. Peace.